Now let's further enrich our perspectives with our guest contributor who will give his views and expertise on nearly everything that we've covered on the program today. And for this, I'm joined now in the studio by Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Professor of Communications and Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies, Baze University, Abuja. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And how nice to see you again.
Thank you, Charles.
I mean, it's been a long time.
Been a while,
Yeah, but lovely, lovely to see you. Yes, I did, but I did miss you guys, to be honest.
Thanks.
But let's start by tapping into that vast brain of yours that we
Yeah, come again, Charles.
that we always, shake and tremble in its presence.
I'm highly
here.
honored. Even though I feel flattered sometimes.
No, but seriously, it may sound like flattery, but it is factual as well. Emeka Ihedioha, very interesting person to talk to, somebody who's achieved a lot in politics, who helped build the PDP but left the party, gave reasons why he did, and now he's politically adrift, let's put it that way. What did you make of his interview?
I think he's had a record of being a very smart politician over the years. I think I started knowing him from around 1992-93 in the botched Third Republic, in the period of military transition, when he was very active in the old PDM, public relations department under the late sage Umar Musa, Shehu Musa Yaradua, by the way, and of course, from then on, he's been very, very consistent. So I think he must have read the signs that PDP is presently riddled with some centrifugal forces, and of course, it's going to be very difficult to redeem it in the present circumstance. And because of the circumstance, it's good to start making some fundamental statements. And one of the statements that you can make in the circumstance, like you describe him as a very pragmatic person, is to pull out. Pulling out is a kind of statement. You may say it's drastic, dramatic, but of course it's meant to send a message, to the powers that be, that look, some other persons, influential persons, might also be thinking of leaving, especially when we have a very strong onslaught coming behind, the Labour Party that is, coming up very strongly as another force through the instrumentality of a Peter Obi. Yes, we may not know where Emeka Ihedioha and his followers, large followers, like he said, will be headed to in the circumstance. But of course, we can't tell as well that Labour Party might receive them in the future. And of course, they can also go into other parties. The opportunities are there, are plenty. But overall, it is left for him to tell. But typical of Emeka as a very smart person, I saw that he was very reticent, largely taciturn. He didn't volunteer much information other than when you ask him about his record. And of course, his record, no doubt salutary, while he was in the House of Reps, while he was a governor, but he was also very clever in not revealing what his immediate, medium or long-term plans are. I can understand with him because it's politics, things are still very fluid, things are still mutating. You can never tell what will happen tomorrow. But what I can see in him is that it's somebody who has transformed as a leader. The Emeka Ihedioha I knew, that I know those days, that I used to know those days, I beg your pardon, will be much more volunteering, much more expressive, telling you what he's going to do and what he's not going to do. But you can see that, the virtues, the values of leadership are now imbued in him. So he's been circumspect in terms of what he wants to say and what he's not going to say. But I don't know, Charles, that I still see him as somebody who should still rule Imo State on account of his experience, which many of us still feel that was very, very unfortunate. It remains a major blight on judicial intervention in the Nigerian political process. And one way that we think that can be redeemed is if it comes back one way or the other. I don't know how it's going to happen. Everything is in the womb of time, like you said, it's pregnant, tomorrow is pregnant, it's in the hand of God. But for that remedy, for us to have a remediation, I think it would be nice, if at some point it returns to rule Imo State.
Right. But, in terms of what we can see and what we know at this point, he started this movement, and according to what he said, he's taken a lot of people from the PDP in Imo State, and they've essentially formed a new structure which will become a bargaining chip.
That's right.
In any future negotiations with any other party. But it could also become a threat, couldn't it? I mean, if you carry your structure to go to another party, you know, particularly within a state, I mean, you're likely to dominate that party, and that could make the people there nervous, couldn't it?
So, no, I'm not sure they'll be nervous. You know, he's been a governor. It doesn't matter how short his tenure was. And of course, he was very influential in the National Assembly, you know, as Chief Whip and as Deputy Speaker. And of course, he was even Speaker for about a week when Tambuwal had gone to Sokoto to become governor. So he's got followers, not just in the National Assembly, but in the state. And you know how politicians move when they have a bigger picture, you know, at hand, when they're focusing on the bigger picture. You know, they may not come out in the first instance to say they are moving straight to another party, especially when it is not election time.
And everything hasn't been crossed.
That's right. So it's okay for them to hibernate, you know, under an association, you know, the aegis of an association, on a platform that is looking neutral, that seems to be focusing on development, on growth issues. But eventually, of course, we know that the cat will be let out of the bag, you know, and we'll see where they're headed, as the case could be.
But were you? I wonder what your reaction is to the fact that he refused to assess the stewardship of Governor Hopu's.
Yeah, you know, we acknowledged that he's a very smart person. If you look at his pedigree, you know, how he even emerged in the first instance as PDP candidate on 2 occasions, you know, the caliber of people that he defeated, you know, ordinarily, you know, older people, people who were probably with bigger war chests, you know, he outsmarted them one way or the other. He can be very creative, so I'm sure he's reflecting that creativity by not being, you know, by not assessing the governor and maybe the president as well. You know, by virtue of his position, you know, he's treading on a very slippery ground now. You know, whatever he says will matter, you know, whether in support or against. It could be interpreted in many regards. And, you know, nerves are still frayed, you know, with regards to how he left office and the major beneficiaries. So, you know, tension is still there, still embedded, you know. So he shouldn't, you know, flee it further, you know. So it's okay. I think it's just a wise decision, somewhat smart. Do not forget, over time, he's avoided this one-on-one interview, you know, playing his politics undercover. With some of his lieutenants, some of his close aides, Senator Aminu Tambuwal, former governor of Sokoto State, and quite a number of them at the national and state level. I think he's got an ace off his sleeves, which we're going to savor at the appropriate time, you know. But what we can just say now is good luck to him. And he repeated something before you severally, that he's still under 60. He's still got a lot of prospects ahead of him. And if we have politicians in their late 70s, in their 80s in Nigeria now, somebody who's under 60, it's just money yet on the day of increase, Charles.
Prof, thank you very much indeed. As always, a very balanced, nuanced assessment. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a professor of communications and dean of the School of Postgraduate Studies at Baze University in Abuja. Great to see you again, and thank you ever so much.
Pleasure. Same here, Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.